Hi, Lindsay. So I am Nancy from Nancy Inspired, if you're new here. And so my gift is something I call soul telepathy, and it is what I have the ability to be able to tell you what your soul is trying to tell you. So when I do individual readings, that's what I do. When I come on here for lives, I channel what is most important for the collective, for everybody here. And then for the first half of the live, I do sort of a collective reading. The second half, I take people's names. Don't put your names in yet because it'll get lost in the feed. But when I tell you I'm ready, you can put your name in. Then I tap in. I do really believe that if you feel called to put your name in, it's probably because whatever the message is for you is probably also for someone else. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm just going to say hello, Lindsay, Frank, Johnny, Susan. Hello, Kath. It's so nice to see everybody. Wonderful. I'm going to connect Jamie. Hello. I'm going to just ask for permission. I always ask for permission before I begin. So can I, man, shall I do a reading for my Insight Timer friends and family, both those that are listening now and those that come on later. I find that it kind of grows throughout the live. We end up with more people by the end. So this is permission for everybody who taps in, and even people that maybe listen later as well. All right, I'm getting a clear yes. Then is there any reason why I shouldn't at this moment in time? I don't know if you can see the pendulum. I guess you can't. It's telling me no problem, that I can do it. Then I'm going to ask that everybody's intuition be raised to the highest level that they can accommodate with at this moment in time. Allow their souls to speak freely and clearly for everyone's highest and best good. That's my little ritual at the beginning, just asking permission to see how I can connect. So those of you that just joined on, how this works, I'm going to just do kind of some channeled messaging, what's important for us to know for the week, and then some individual messaging. I do have my granddaughter. Most of you who are my regular people know that I also raise my granddaughter, and she is here playing in the other room. So if I get interrupted, then I apologize already, but I was not able to find anyone for her to play with right now, so she is playing by herself, which is a lost art, I think. Kids don't know how to play by themselves as well. I remember as a kid, I used to play by myself for hours and hours and hours, and didn't think anything of it. It seems to be a lost skill, something we're going to have to practice. Anyway, all right. Hello, Erin and Natasha and Nicole and Jamie. It is a lost art. It is. It's interesting. I taught kindergarten for many years, and it was amazing how many kids didn't know how to play. Like, I actually had to show them how to play pretend, because it was either tell me what to do and I'll do it, or show me how to play, but they had a hard time just picking something up and playing with it. It was very, very interesting. All right. I digress. So, on that, let's get into our first bit of messaging for today. What do I hear? I always listen to hear. It always shows up in my body first, and then I have to kind of translate. So, interesting. It's sort of this interesting feeling of like rising and sinking, like what is that? Like this, it's almost like it's pulling up, it's dropping down, it's pulling up, it's dropping down. What is that? Okay, interesting. So then it turned into a well. And what I'm hearing is, and then maybe this is what I need to tell my granddaughter, is that sometimes we got to dig deep. Sometimes we're in situations and struggles or things that are not exactly as we wanted, or we're faced with challenges and difficulties. Something's happened and we got to deal with it. And what I'm hearing this week is that we might be called upon. I don't do divination. I'm not telling you what's happening in the future. But what I'm hearing is that to remember that we all have a well that we can dig from. So when things are hard, when things are facing us, for me, this is report card weekend. And I know it doesn't sound like a big deal, but I have to read, 230 report cards, and I don't want to do it. And I got to dig deep and be like, okay, I can do this. Or I have a friend, a very good friend, whose father just passed away, and now she is having to go through, the whole funeral planning and whatnot. And I was just talking to her last night, and she was feeling very depleted, and and we were talking about having to dig deep, and that once she gets this done and comes home, we'll give her, all the love that we can as a group of friends. So yeah, what I saw was this, like a well, like a bucket going down and then pulling up, and then going down and then pulling up. And so what I'm hearing is to tell you all that just when you think you are at the end of your resources, you can put that bucket back down and dig deep into that well of energy and connection and strength. And, you always have just a little bit more, And so I'm hearing that if you're at all going through a struggle and something that's facing you, that's difficult, especially this week, remember that you have a deep well that you can dig from. So when you're feeling discouraged, when you're feeling tired, when you're feeling overwhelmed, know that you have that well to dig from, is the first bit of messaging that I'm getting. But then piggybacking on that is to recognize is not only do we have our own wellspring to dig from, but we are also always connected. We are always connected to divine source energy. We are connected to collective consciousness. We are connected to ancestral energy, and we're connected to nature. We're connected to nature energy, and that there are tons of resources. There are tons of energetic resources that we can draw from. And I'm hearing to not underestimate or not minimize nature. And that when you are feeling depleted, even just spending some time with a pet, an animal, outside in the trees, outside in the fresh air, can help to replenish some of that energy that's been depleted. Nature is there, constantly giving. Nature is the ultimate giver. It's like giving and giving and giving. So when we need some of that connection, that nature energy to fill up that well that we're digging from, that we have access to that, and that we need to be reminded of that. The other thing that I just heard is that we also have kinetic energy. Okay. So it's just like as we're driving a car, it charges the battery, right? And so when we drive the car, it'll charge the battery. As we use our bodies, and as we generate energy through using our bodies, whether it's like going for a walk or dancing or exercise or whatever it is, as we're creating that energy, we're actually, again, replenishing that well. So if you are feeling depleted, if you are feeling like you're just at the end, the well is dry, you can also fill it up, not only by nature, and time in nature or with natural elements, but also through what I'm hearing is kinetic energy. So I am the idea of exercising, creating that well. So it's when your well is feeling like it's empty, it's being depleted. There are sources of energy outside of you that you can draw from in order to fill it up again. And so I guess that's why in the beginning, even when you feel like you're at your end, there's always just a little bit more. When you need to dig deep, you can dig deep and draw from. It's interesting to tell you a story. I used to go dancing, and I love dancing. Haven't gone dancing in a long time. And last night, a friend of mine who plays in a band was playing a show last night, and I ended up being able to go, and I danced all night. And even though I am tired and my body is sore, I feel lighter, happier. I feel like I can dig deep and read all those report cards today. because of that. I guess kinetic energy as well as just doing something that brought me joy. I'm just going to check the chat here. Yes, too much tech. We said that. Hello, Raquel. Elizabeth. Hello. I turned on this conversation in the stair stepper in the gym. Perfect. We're just going to pull some of your kinetic energy to us, Elizabeth, so that we can dig into this. I've been feeling the rise and fall for a while. It's exhausting. 100% it's exhausting. And people saying hello to each other. Wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you, Elizabeth, for providing some kinetic energy for us. And yes, Jamie, I went dancing. You have tears in my eyes. I'm so happy for you. You know, I danced with you in spirit and didn't even know it. You know, it was so beautiful. The way it all just worked out. I actually had a staff party to go to, well, a little staff gathering to go to. So I had arranged babysitting. And then I had misread the time for the staff party. And so it ended a lot earlier. But I had arranged care for my granddaughter. And then my friend messaged and said, hey, I'm playing at this place. And next thing you know, I was able to gather a couple of people, and we all went out and danced and danced and danced and danced and danced all night. It was ska music. I don't know if you know what ska is, but it's like jumpy reggae. And it was a lot of fun. So kinetic energy. I gathered a bunch of kinetic energy so that I can read those report cards. All right. Let's see. What's the next bit of messaging? So yes, when your well is filling dry, dig deep, and you can refill it through nature and kinetic energy. All right. What else do we have? What else do we have for us today? Oh, well, that's interesting. Okay. So, my fingers are bendy. And so I right away became really aware of my fingers and the fact that my fingers are really bendy. And I was like, why that? And then this is what I heard is being flexible. So a long time ago, I went and saw somebody who was learning how to do palmistry, palm reading. I don't remember anything from the reading. It wasn't super helpful for me. But what she did say is when she, pushed on my fingers, she's like, oh, you have a really super flexible personality. And I do have a very flexible, I'm pretty easy to navigate any situation. I'm pretty flexible. That's what I'm hearing, that we're going to this week need to rely on being flexible. That, trees, for example, I love trees. You all know I love trees. But trees, the reason why they don't just fall down in a windstorm is because they can bend and sway. In fact, there's a song, I will bend and I will sway. I will fight to stand up straight or something like that. Anyway, bend and sway. When something is bending and swaying, it's not going to break, right? If something is super rigid and being pushed on, it's more likely to break. My mom had a situation once where she was in a car accident. And just as she was about to have the impact of the car accident, she heard her father's voice say, drunks and babies don't get hurt. And she right away knew that meant just go limp. And as a result, she actually saved herself from really significant injuries because her body was loose and flexible. So what I'm hearing is for this week, that when you are in certain situations where you are feeling pushed, right? Or, things are coming at you, that it's important to be flexible. That sometimes by being super rigid, it's only hurting yourself because you're using all that energy to stand against something so hard that there's no flexibility. That said, I'm going to qualify, because I right away heard to qualify that does not mean having, loose boundaries, right? If you've set a boundary and it's not being met or acknowledged, absolutely, that's a time to be rigid. That's a time to be firm and firmly set that boundary. What I just saw, what I was just given, is like a flood. If you build that sand wall, the water is going to hit and it's going to stay, and nothing's going to get damaged on this side. That's a boundary. That's when you need to set something up to make sure that you're protected, either emotionally, physically, or whatever. That's boundaries, and absolutely we need to be strong and rigid in our boundaries. But this is a little bit different. What I'm hearing is that this is situations where we feel like we are being confronted, and maybe it's belief systems, maybe it's things we think to be true, or whatever, and we're being confronted by someone else's truth, or we're being confronted by someone else's perspective. We have to remember that perspectives, perceptions, even though they might not be accurate in our mind, are accurate for the other person, right? That perception is reality for the other person. And so when you are meeting up with something, sometimes by just being rigid, that can cause you damage and whatnot. Whereas and even the other thing that's bumping up against, and asking us to try to be a little bit flexible, be a little bit okay. Is there perspective here that I'm not seeing? Is there a way of looking at this that I'm not seeing? Is there things that I don't know that I'm making assumptions about? And so be aware during confrontation. This one's kind of hitting home because I had a bit of a confrontation today. And I'm wondering, am I being overly rigid? It's not usually something I am. Usually I'm kind of I'm going to rephrase that. In the past, I have been a little bit of a pushover, and I'm trying to get stronger in my boundaries, but I'm wondering, have I been a little bit too rigid in this particular scenario? So something to think about, that trees don't break because they bend and sway. Drunks and babies don't get hurt, according to my grandfather. All right, taking a sip of water. Checking in the chat. Jamie loves ska. Lindsay, ska, how fun. It was awesome. It was fun. They're a band called King Mustafa. And they're a local band. And a friend of mine who's also a music teacher is a trombone player. And it was a lot of fun. Melinda, I'm always rephrasing like that. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a fine line, I think, between boundary setting and being firm in your boundaries, and being flexible and seeing someone else's perspective, and there's a danger of being too much one way or the other, when you're too rigid in how you set boundaries, that can cause a challenge, but also the other way as well. So okay, let's see what the next bit of messaging. Hello, KG from Las Vegas. Awesome. All right, here we go. Let me see what I have next for you beautiful people. I'll admit I'm a little tired today from dancing. Okay, similar message. It seems to be a bit of a theme here. So what I got was like a coil, like a spring, and you pull the coil and it's like boing, and it springs back, right? And that's what I'm hearing, that we are being asked to be, is like the coil. So sometimes harder than others, depending on how squished or dented our coils are getting, how easy it is to spring back, right? But what I'm hearing is to recognize that we all have that ability, that even though, okay, I just got a funny image of like a coil, that even when it's dented and there's like that, that kink that you just can't get out, it'll still spring, right? Might not spring quite the same way, but it'll still spring. So that's what I got when I was saying, like sometimes it's harder than others to spring back. But what I'm hearing is that we do have the ability to recreate ourselves from moment to moment. And we have the ability to spring back as much as we want to. Now, of course, there might be some physical limitations, there might be mental limitations, there might be things going on. However, we can still spring back to whatever degree. And we have the chance to recreate and reframe our perspective every given moment. This makes me think of a story in that just on, I don't know if it's Thursday or Friday, I went to work and everybody was tired. Everyone I talked to was like, oh, I'm tired. Now I'm saying it. Now I'm yelling. Excuse me. Everybody was tired. And then my secretary, admin support, said something about, I can't remember how she phrased it, but something about being careful about what we say or something like that. And she was talking about something else. But then when I put the two together as I was walking down the hallway, I was like, you know what? If we're constantly saying, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, then our bodies are going, oh, you're tired. And then we start to feel more tired, you know? Now, that's not saying, you know, if you're tired, rest, you know, and sometimes we push ourselves too hard. But in that given moment, I was like, am I really tired? Or did I just not really want to be there? Did I not? I just didn't have a really great weekend. It was a challenging weekend. I was feeling a little low in spirit. I was feeling, you know, and it's like, okay, yeah, I was tired. I was a little bit worn out. But instead of focusing on being tired, I had a choice at that moment to reframe and go, okay, I'm grateful that I have a job that's paying my bills right now. And I am grateful that I actually really like my job this year, which I can't say for every year that I've taught. I actually really like my job this year. I like my staff. I like where I work. And, you know, yes, I was tired, but reframe. And even right now, I'm tired. You can see the bags under my eyes. I'm tired. I stayed up later last night than I have in forever. But I'm happy because I got to go dancing and I had a good time. So I could focus on the fact that I'm tired, or I could focus on the fact that I got to go out and go dancing. Now, does that mean I'm going to, you know, abuse my body and stay up late and whatever? No, I'm going to acknowledge that I'm tired and I need to look after myself. But rather, I just mean instead of focusing my energy on, oh, I'm tired, it's, you know, I'm happy. My bucket is full because I got to dance. Yes, I'm a little bit tired. Yes, the body's a little sore, but I'm happy because I got to go dance. And so reframing. So like that little coil spring, right, that I saw in the first little bit of image there, we have the ability to bounce back, to spring back. And one of the ways we do that is by reframing. And so I'm not talking false positivity. I'm not talking pretending that everything's great when it's not, but I am talking about reframing that, yes, acknowledge I'm tired or I'm sick or I'm sore or this situation really sucks, but I can't do anything about that. So I'm going to focus on the fact that I have a cup of tea I can drink, or I have a whatever, like something little, right? Those little gratitude practices, are so important, so essential. So reframing helps you to be like that little coil spring and springing back. All right, let me just see the little text here. Oh no, Susan dropped your laptop. Okay, but I'm glad you caught it. I just saw both little texts. I dropped my laptop a couple years ago and it was done and I was so sad. And I did not have the funds to replace it at first. Yeah, it was a bad thing. So I'm glad that it turned out okay. Hello, Nicholas from Belgium. Wonderful. All these, every time I see people from other countries, I can't wait to have the ability to travel more. I really want to see all these beautiful places. KG, yes, I've been so tired, but always have been taking care of myself more than ever before, mentally, physically, and spiritually. I need to reframe this. Yes. Reframing is powerful, Lindsay, for sure. Multiple truths can be true at once. Sometimes it's a choice of what I'm going to give my attention to. Yes, I'm tired, I'm happy, so let me focus on joy. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. It's not saying, don't acknowledge you're tired. In fact, you're tired because your body's telling you something, right? Stayed up too late, you danced harder, whatever it was. But focusing on the positives. I just started to get a little bit of messaging, so I was like, okay, I'll just stop talking for a second. Okay. Okay, weird imagery that popped into my head, but it was like a pin cushion kind of thing, and I didn't quite understand that, but what it was is that at any given moment we have a lot of different things we can pay attention to. We can, in any given moment there is, things happening around us, and we choose what we're going to give our time and attention and energy to. And so that is not only for us reframing or whatever, and being that spring and springing back, but also what we choose to absorb, what we choose to pay attention to. So when we're looking at, in any given moment, if I asked you to look around and notice everything that's green around your space, you'd start noticing the green. It's always been there. You're just becoming more aware of it. So with this messaging, it's about asking us to pay attention to what we're paying attention to. What are we filling our minds with? Are we filling our minds with things that are uplifting and beautiful and compassionate and kind and positive? Or are we filling ourselves up with things that are scary and heavier energy? I don't want to say bad, because I don't think anything's bad. It's well, I guess there's things that are bad, but things that affect us negatively. I know where I live right now, there's a lot of stuff in the news that is really hard. I try to keep up on what's going on enough to allow myself to know what I can do things about, and then I try really hard not to get sucked into some of the negativity and whatnot. So I'm hearing that just like a pincushion, I don't know why it's a pincushion, there's things getting our attention everywhere, all around us. And we need to be aware of what we're paying attention to, because not everything is helpful for us. Not everything is what we need at any given moment in time. I got distracted by the doorbell. That is probably Aurora's little friend wanting to come and play. But she is busy playing in her room, so I am going to be quiet, and I'm not going to do anything about that right now, because she's actually playing by herself. Awesome. All right, pay attention to what brings you joy. All right, next bit of messaging. All right. So I became aware of my foot, and I'm like, why am I aware of my foot? All right. So hold on, give me 1 second. You got the door, Aurora? I think that might be Alex. All right. Sorry, let me pay attention again. Actually, what I'm going to do is close my door so that you guys can play inside. I'm just going to close the door, okay? All right, here we go. All right, why did I become aware of my foot at that moment? Oh, okay. I understand. Um, so I have, I guess it'd be like a bunion starting on your foot, not to get personal and whatnot, but, and I became aware of that. The reason why I became aware of it, the messaging, is that we have to be careful about the long-term effects of what we're doing. So things that we do now ultimately will affect us later. So the reason I became aware of my foot, at one point I used to wear heels, I danced, I did different things that were probably hard on my feet, and now I'm paying the price for that a little bit. Now, is it a big deal? Not really, but the reason I became aware of it was because we have to remember that the choices we make today affect us in the future. And that said, not to be like, oh, you know, everything you do today has this like heavy weight, because everything's changeable. You know, you can navigate things in different ways. However, what it's saying is be aware of the choices that you're making today. If you're choosing to say no to something that would be good for you, or saying yes to things that are not good for you, be aware that our actions today have an impact, and that the reverse is true, and that if we're choosing things that are good for us, that are healthy for us, that bring us light and love, you know, at some point those also you reap the benefits, you reap the rewards. So be aware that the choices you're making today, whether they're little choices or big choices, affect your future. Yeah, I was just hearing also that sometimes we don't want to think about the future. We don't want to think. I know when I was younger, I didn't want to think about the future. I remember my parents, I really didn't love being in education. And my parents were like, but your pension, but your pension, but your pension. And I was like, pension, like, because I was, 20 something, and I didn't really think about it at all. And I didn't realize the impact or value it had until now that I'm close to retirement. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that I did that. I mean, there's lots of different things, but that's just an example of sometimes we don't want to think about stuff, or we don't value things, or other things take value over other things. But just remember that the choices you make today affect your future, whether they are a choice of, like, someone being lactose intolerant but deciding to eat ice cream, they're going to have an effect later, or something more bigger long term. I don't like, the messaging I'm getting doesn't feel like this big heavy, like, oh, be careful and make good choices. It's more an empowering message, and I'm not sure I'm getting that feeling across. The feeling is more like it is in your power to shape your future based on choices you make, right? So if you choose, I'm just trying to, I want to try and rephrase it, because I realize I'm not conveying the energy of this message. The energy of this message is very empowering, that we have the ability to basically make our lives what we want it to be, and to recognize that when we say yes to something or we say no to something, we are directly influencing our being, ourselves. And it's meant to feel empowering, not a doom and gloom like I think I was delivering it. I kind of got a little nudge of like, no, you're not doing this right. So, yeah, it's that idea that we can make choices that, and it is feeling empowering, in that it's not meant to be criticized. See, my brain is like going to places, but it's about like how good you feel when you do something for yourself. Like, I will drink a glass of water, and I chronically dehydrate myself, And sure, I could continue to dehydrate myself and it's probably not going to do a whole lot, whatever, but how good I feel when I drink that glass of water. And it's about recognizing that I have the power to make myself feel good by drinking that glass of water. Not that, oh, you're going to, something bad's going to happen if you don't. It's more that idea of you have the power to make choices, to allow yourself to feel how you want to feel and be how you want to be. Yeah, it's about that empowerment. I kind of got my little hand slap there for a second going, nope, you're not delivering this correctly. It's more about that empowerment and being that you have the ability to shape things for yourself in a positive way. And that there's always some kind of choice. There's, no matter what the situation is, and even though there's situations where I absolutely right now feel like I don't have a choice in the matter, but I always have some choices. I might not be able to completely change this, but I could do a little bit of this and add this or whatever. And so recognizing that we actually have the power to empower ourselves and make our lives closer to the alignment of what we need. I apologize for not saying that correctly at first. I'm just reading the chat here. When we do what makes us feel good or aligned, are creating our good and aligned future. Absolutely. Exactly. It doesn't mean that if you eat the ice cream and whatever, that if that makes you happy, go for it, right? That's not what that, yeah. All right. Moving on. Any, let's see. Any other collective wisdom for this week? What's important for us? Okay. So what I got was like a raven or a crow collecting shiny treasures. And as I was like, okay, what is that? This little raven was like, collecting all these shiny bits and bobs. What I'm hearing is collect, this would be similar to like what I call snapshot moments, where you fill up your beauty bank, you fill up your creativity bank, you fill up your positivity bank with moments, things, visions, whatever, that bring you joy. And so I call them snapshot moments, and this is kind of an example of what this is asking us to do. When I'm having a really great moment, like last night, for example, there was a moment where I was dancing, having a great time. My friend's on the stage playing her trombone. My friends are dancing. It was just lovely. And I just took a moment where I like heard the sounds, felt the feelings, just really internalized how that felt at that moment so that I can recall it later. So that at some point when I say, oh, I need a snapshot moment right now, that might be a moment that appears in my head. And so you create these moments, you collect these little treasures of positivity, of things that bring you joy, things that fill your bucket, so that when you are feeling low, when you are feeling depleted, when you are feeling down, you can recall a snapshot moment. I often recall my snapshot moments when I'm angry, like when I'm really frustrated with something and I need to just cool my jets a little. I'll be like, I need a snapshot moment, and then I'll get an image, and then it right away, my whole body responds to that image and just goes, okay, now I can deal with the situation, as long as I remember to do that. Sometimes I don't remember to do that and I stay angry, but the little snapshot moment. So what I'm hearing, that little crow or raven was like collecting treasures, right? We have the ability on any given day, at any given moment, to collect little treasures. So we can, it's almost like gratitude practice. But in this instance, what I'm hearing is actually collect little tangible things. My son collects corks. So anytime they're at an event where they're having fun, whatever, he'll collect a cork, he'll write on it the event, and he has a big bowl of all these like quirks of events they were at that he can remember, spending time with friends and family, and that's his little treasures that he's collected. Or maybe it's rocks, it doesn't have to be something expensive. I tend to get tea mugs from places that were important to me, or places of joy for me. So not only can you collect those little snapshot moments mentally, but it's also about collecting those little snapshot mementos, those little treasures, and surrounding yourself with those little treasures. And it doesn't have to be big, materialistic clutter, but mementos and little treasures that help you to ground into some of those positive reframing spaces, is what I'm hearing. Okay, Yogita, thank you for helping Susan with emojis. I am not techie with emojis either. Feathers, photos. Absolutely, photos is a great one. That's, if you scroll through, I did that the other day. I was trying to, we have a friend whose birthday it is, and we're putting together a little thing for her, and I was looking for some pictures, and, just scrolling through and be like, oh yeah, that was fun, and that was fun, and a great way to collect little mementos is, photos. Collect bookmarks. People forgotten library books. Oh, I love that. Lavender, do you work in a library? I've always wanted to work in a library. That's really cool. That's a cool collection. So finding little treasures and surrounding yourself with little treasures. All right, let's see. Any other collective wisdom? Okay, this is interesting. So at first I saw a megaphone, like a megaphone, and then I was like, okay, why the megaphone? And then I got recalled to, there was a time when I was teaching kindergarten that I had laryngitis. I had no voice, and so I was whispering, and it was amazing how all the kids, even though I had like 25 5-year-olds, all started whispering. And so those two images were combined, because the last time I used a megaphone was for an event at my school, and I was trying to use a megaphone, and it was not getting the attention. We were outside doing an event, and it wasn't working. And so I started singing, and I was like, if you can hear me with your fingers, and then everybody started listening. What I'm hearing, the message here, is that sometimes you don't need to shout to be heard. That if you're in a situation where you're feeling like you're kind of like exhausting yourself, shouting to be heard, try a different tactic. Maybe, like speaking in a different way. And I'm not just talking tone, right? I'm talking like, if you're not being heard in the way that you're trying to communicate it, try communicating in a different way. When I was using the megaphone, no, it wasn't working. When I sang and started to sing, and it wasn't very loud, but people started to listen, and then it rippled, everybody listened, I was able to get everyone's attention. That's the story I was given to recall. And so if what you're trying to communicate is not being heard, try communicating it in a different way. That perhaps the people you're trying to communicate to are just not hearing it that way. And that if you try it a different way, try to communicate in a different way, different words, different style, different delivery, that might be more effective. So if they're not hearing what you're trying to say, try saying it in a different way. Oh, I like rhymes. Poet, and I didn't even know it. All right. I'm going to grab my pen. Just wait. Don't put anything yet, because I'll lose you. All right. And here we go. I'm going to write down people's names. Shanette and Lindsay and Nicole and Melinda. Oh, it's moving too fast. Just 1 second. Melinda and Johnny. Oh,